This is David Pakman and Destiny in the middle, and Cenk Uygur on the right from the Young Turks arguing. Cenk Uygur is turning right-wing right now. It's crazy. So I want to listen to what they have to say here. There's a big, long argument, apparently, a 40-minute long argument on Pakman's channel. While we listen, we're going to play Pokemon Ultraviolet. It's a ROM hack of Red that lets me catch every Pokemon. So let's give this a listen and play. I just started this game like last night, so I'm going to pull up the one that I've been playing. I'm just in Viridian Forest. Like, it's at the very beginning of the game, so.
Today we are going to be speaking with two distinguished gentlemen who have been on the show before. We'll be speaking with Stephen Kent.
Jesus Christ, dude. Cenk's head is gigantic in this frame. He needs to scale it back a little bit. I always worry this is going to happen to me when I go on shows. My head's going to be humongous, especially compared to the other person's head.
Destiny Bennell II, political streamer and debater. And also, he has a much shorter name, Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks. So to get...
Pakman likes trolling Destiny with his name. Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell II or something, right?
us into this conversation, we recently did a poll on our YouTube channel, Unscientific. Does the Democratic Party need to move left or right, or is it fine where it is? 47% of our audience said Democrats should embrace left-wing economic populism and move further to the left.
In my opinion, it doesn't matter where the Democrats go. They're going to be attacked by Republicans, period. They're going to be called socialists no matter what they do. So they might as well move left. They certainly should not be moving right. Absolutely no chance. But why not move left? Strategically, it doesn't even matter.
44% either said that the Democratic Party is perfect the way it is, change nothing, or should move further to the center, deal with issues of crime and immigration in a way that more resembles the way the right talks about it, etc.
So he's saying that percentage wants to move them to the right?
Just want to hear about your reaction to that and which direction sounds like it's the one we need to go in.
So, David, I know those questions are rough and it's hard to phrase them exactly right, but I think that you put two different things into one question and then hence it becomes misleading. So let me break it down for you. I think that there are three different parts of the Democratic Party now, and they're usually called two different parts, but that's very wrong. So there's the establishment part. I think that's basically the part that Destiny supports.
What does he mean by establishment exactly? Like, we kind of take it for granted that the establishment, quote unquote, exists, but what does that mean precisely? Does he mean people that have been involved in government for a long time? What specific issues do they want to keep the same? Presumably that's like part of the establishment, I don't know, plan or whatever, right? When he says establishment, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. When Cenk, specifically, when he says establishment, I get the impression that he's like implying deep state, when there's no reason to imply that whatsoever, none. There is no deep state, certainly not the way that like Trump describes it and Cenk seemingly. So, I mean, Joe Biden was part of the establishment, if you think about it, for like many years, but he governed to the left. He changed a lot of things. Every quote unquote establishment person has different takes on everything. The reason I'm challenging this is because I feel like Cenk is going down the exact path that right-wing extremists go down. The exact path that led the German people down the path they went down. This is obviously a microcosm, not even close to that situation, but it's the same style of rhetoric, populism. Like, there are a lot of things that don't need to change in the country that are pretty good. And for that, I think an establishment is fine, quote unquote. Additionally, there are a lot of people that don't want to move any further left at all. You know, it's not the establishment you're fighting against, it's the will of the people that you're fighting against. I know it's odd to think that most people in the Democratic Party might not want universal health care, or might have strong opinions about abortion rights or whatever. That's odd. But yeah, there are some right-wing views in the Democratic Party. There are a lot of old Democrats that are only Democrats because their dad was a Democrat, because he was in a union, the coal miners union or whatever. So they continue voting Democrat, but they have very conservative views. And if you lose those people, then you lose every election moving forward, every one of them. So there's a balancing act. It's not like there's a secret cabal of people at the top that's trying to force us to move right or whatever it's just that you have to make everybody in the country happy.
Rah, rah, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, corporate Democrats who will deliver 5 to 10%, and then you're supposed to kiss their ass for it and go, oh my God, you changed my life.
Well, I mean, yeah, they'll deliver 5 to 10% of what you want, and they'll deliver 5 to 10% of what these other people want also. You know, we live in a big country, 330 million people, and we all have differing views on everything. So obviously you're not going to get everything you want. That's not them being establishment. That is them trying to represent the broadest number of voters, seems to me.
So much. And it's nothing but propaganda. They do basically almost everything the donors ask them to. That's the loser wing of the party. And I don't mean that in terms of the folks who are advocating for it. God bless, everybody's got every right to advocate for what they believe in. I mean, they are literally losers. Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump, who, you know, is barely in double digits in IQ points.
Okay, interesting. I see your they lose everything and raise you. They win consistently everywhere else. They are the only ones running, the ones that represent the broadest swath of the Democratic base. You know, my grandma, a good woman at heart, truly, deeply, maybe the best person I have ever met in my life. A good person. I lost her a couple of years ago. It's really, really, really hard. Anyway, she voted Democrat her entire life, all through the 1960s, throughout the civil rights battles. When black people were literally being lynched in the streets, she lived in a sundown town where they were not welcome. She didn't see a black person until she was like 23 years old or something. And she was still fighting for them in 1960, all the way through. But in the last years of her life, she espoused some other political views that she had. Like, for example, she believed that men wearing earrings is gay. She didn't realize I wore earrings because she was kind of out of it at the end, you know. And she said earrings are gay, and then she felt terrible because she thought that she'd hurt my feelings or whatever. I was like, it's fine, I don't care. Anyway, a lot of people are deeply, truly, honestly good people to the bottom of their hearts, but they have completely different views than you on some things that you view as fundamental and obvious. You can't dress cool in rural areas without being called gay. Yeah. I give a shit. Like, call me gay if you want. All right, let's continue. No, she didn't say gay. I think she said it looks feminine or something, but yeah.
Biden nearly lost. So if you want to keep making that same mistake, we'll, you know, a couple of decades.
I mean, what do you think would happen if they moved left? Do you think that the base would stay with them? They would lose a ton of people. They may invigorate a bunch more. But this is about winning elections with the most number of votes, not about making the most number, or not about making a small number of people very happy. It's about making a large number of people a little happy. That's why you, Jank, only get 10 or 20% of what you want. Everybody gets that.
If you want to keep making that same mistake, we'll, you know, a couple of decades later, there'll be no party left. But like, if we just get the best corporate robot, like,
dude, I didn't mean to do that. I just went all the way down through Viridian Forest, and I meant to go battle. God, why did I do that? This sucks. All right, I got to move all the way back to Battle Gary.
There'll be no party left. But like, if we just get the best corporate robot, like Pete Buttigieg, maybe he'll be the answer. No, corporate robots are by definition not the answer.
Like, a lot of these people are stiff. Hillary Clinton, very polished and stiff, and I'll give him that, robotic. Pete Buttigieg, stiff and robotic. But another thing that I came to find, the majority of people in the Democratic Party want that. They like stiff, robotic, and professional. They don't want somebody that kind of lays it on the line and is honest for once in their lives or whatever. Like, I liked Bernie Sanders a great deal. I feel he embodied those qualities. True honesty, like transparency, just advocating for good things, being a good person. Bernie Sanders could have taken a bad position And I would have still appreciated it because he was honest about it. Like, I don't like his position on nuclear power. Bernie Sanders, he is, at last I checked, at least, opposed to nuclear energy. But he is in that position because he honestly feels that way. But I came to find that the majority of the Democratic Party do not want that, actually. The majority want stiff, polished, and professional, really. Again, I don't. I'm just saying. I don't believe that we're going to win any elections moving forward if that's what we're shooting for.
So we're in a populist era. We're in an era where online media is stronger now for the first time than mainstream media. Authenticity is rewarded. And so
I
sending
think maybe maybe a little authenticity would be good.
out people going, I am doing what the donors asked me to, is a disaster, epic disaster. And you've seen it with your own eyes. So I'm trying to wake people up. Now, when you go to the progressive side, everybody just goes, oh, progressives. But wait a minute, there's two very different camps in there.
Yep.
There's the camp that's Bernie 2016 that I'm in. That's economic populism, left-wing populists.
I am not a populist. I think populism is a dangerous road to go down. Not because the ideas are bad. I agree with all of the populist ideas, but because populism is a style of rhetoric that is dangerous and damaging. Let's just check ChatGPT for what populism is. Populism is a political approach that seeks to appeal to ordinary people who feel their concerns are ignored by established elites or institutions. It often frames politics as a struggle between the people, seen as virtuous and unified, and the elite, viewed as corrupt and self-serving. Populism can be found across the political spectrum. Left-wing populism typically focuses on economic inequality and argues that elites exploit the working class. Examples include movements advocating for wealth redistribution and stronger social welfare systems. And right-wing populism often emphasizes national identity, cultural issues, and opposition to immigration, portraying elites as detached from the values of ordinary citizens. While populism can energize political systems by addressing genuine grievances, critics argue that it can oversimplify complex issues, undermine democratic institutions, or foster authoritarian tendencies when leaders claim to uniquely represent the people. The Nazi Party, Hitler was a populist. He ran a populist movement. He believed in populism. He was using people's grievances over a messed up state as ammunition against them. In 1923, I've been reading about this a lot because I wrote a book called Was Hitler an Atheist? Give it a look, Amazon and Audible, or owenmorgan.com if you want a signed copy. Anyway, I should put a button for signed copies on the main page. That's neither here nor there. In 1919 to 1923, I think, there was a massive hyperinflation event, the likes of which the world had never seen and still has never seen. The most extreme case of hyperinflation in recorded human history ever. Germans were girls were selling themselves for sticks of butter. It was more intense and terrible than any other culture's ever experienced, ever. Between 1919 and 1923, after World War I ended. So anyway, the people remembered that, and they wanted to go back to a time. They wanted to make Germany great again. That quote unquote, those are the words they use, make Germany great again. Before World War I or during World War I, they believed that they were super powerful at the time. Look at Hungary after World War II. It was bad, yes, but wait. What was the worst case of hyperinflation in the world? Hold on. Oh, wow, you're right. Holy shit. I've been saying it's Germany this whole time. Well, I guess it was the worst case of hyperinflation up to that moment, 1923, in recorded history. Hungary in 1946, after World War II, experienced astronomical inflation rates that reached unfathomable levels. Here's an overview of the extraordinary event. Peak monthly inflation. The inflation rate hit 4.19 times 10 to the 16th percent per month. Holy shit. Eventually, the forint replaced the pengo in August 1946 at a conversion rate of 400 octillion pengo to 1 forint. Oh my god, dude, that's nuts. Yeah, well, anyway, Germany was really bad. At that moment, it was the worst that the world had ever seen. And people didn't like it. They were sick of it. They wanted things to change. So eventually, some bankers came in and they implemented some clever economic maneuvers, like renegotiating the Treaty of Versailles so they didn't have to make their reparations payments for 5 years, reparations for World War I. And they created a new currency on the gold standard. So I think it was, what was it? Just a German mark, I think, or maybe it was just a mark. Anyway, each mark was worth a certain amount in gold. Previously, that wasn't the case. The government could only print so much. It wasn't allowed to print more than that. So anyway, that's how they dealt with the hyperinflation. And nobody wanted to go back to that. When Hitler came along in 1921, he spent the next 10 to 12 years talking about how evil the bankers are, how they were the cause of the hyperinflation, how they tried to ruin the German economy and ruin the German people with this hyperinflation. That is populism. That's populism. It's delusional. That's not what was happening. You know why hyperinflation happened in Germany in the early 20s? Because the military was printing more money, more and more and more and more, trying to buy more weapons and pay more soldiers and stuff, just throwing caution to the wind. They kept printing. And when you print more money, it becomes worthless because there's more money in the economy. And that's just how inflation works. That is why, I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but that's one of the many reasons why it went completely out of control. Not because there was some banker that was trying to force inflation to happen. That's delusion. You are in a delusional world if you believe that. That's where populism leads. So who did Hitler blame? I mean, what reason could Germans possibly have for trying to destroy the German economy? That's nonsense. As a matter of fact, funny enough, the guy that helped get Germany out of that hyperinflation mess, Schacht was his name, I believe. He was a Nazi later. He worked for the Nazi government later, and he ran the Nazi economy. So they literally hired the people that were working on the economy in the first place during that time period to work in the Nazi government. So they had to come up with an excuse, an explanation for why somebody would do that and who it could be. The answer? The Jew. The Jew is out to get us. They're all out to get us. They're trying to hurt us because they don't like us. I mean, it's delusion. That's where populism leads. Be very careful with it. Are there rich scumbags at the top? Absolutely. Is there an organized cabal that plans with each other to hurt the lower people because they enjoy hurting people? No. There's a guy during, I think, Hurricane Milton or Hurricane Helene, owned a factory, ordered his employees to stay in the factory until after the hurricane. Just keep working. Work through the hurricane. And like 4 of them died. That is some scumbag shit right there. Did he plan that with like Joe Biden and I don't know, and Donald Trump or whoever the fuck? No, he's just a scumbag. We need to root out scumbags when we find them. Send him to jail for, I don't know, negligent homicide, something certainly, right? We can send him for something. There is not this organized group at the top trying to, make you bend over and take it. It's just not happening, is the point. That's populism. That's what Cenk believes in. He thinks that there is an organized group at the top that's trying to f the little guy over. It's just a series of scumbags. There is no cabal. So this really pisses me off, man. All right, let's continue listening to Cenk's delusional rant here. Populism is bad. So are the rich taking advantage of the poor.
It's Bernie 2016 that I'm in. That's economic populism, left-wing populists. And then there's the identitarian left, which is go maximum on crime doesn't exist. Trans people should be able to play in any professional sports they like.
Okay, interesting. So there are only people that believe in this delusional elite cabal that's like out to get you, and people that want, I don't know, post-birth abortion is what you're telling me? Those are the only 2 types of people on the left? What? In my humble opinion, I believe that both of those groups of people make up a very small subset of the left combined. Almost nobody, in my opinion. Yeah, and also, as FD Jack says, who on the left is saying crime doesn't exist? Who is saying trans people should compete in all sports or whatever? There's nuance to every conversation. He's making this black and white, and it's not. Trans people should obviously be allowed to compete in sports as long as they meet the... I like the IOC rules because they really break it down and figure out if somebody has an unfair advantage or whatever. If your hormones are right at the level where most other women's hormones are, and all whatever other things there are, if you're fast twitch muscle fibers, or I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how all of this works, but as long as it's fair, I'm good. The only problem with trans people's competing is that the world will not accept it. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. I'm fine with it, but it's just not going to play out the way that we wish that it would. So anyway, this is the problem with populism. Black and white thinking right here.
Free surgeries for detainees, on and on and on, right? And so,
yeah, this is all black and white.
So my thesis is not one that's even, I don't even think it's arguable, let alone controversial. The corporate wing and the identitarian left wing proved to be a spectacular failure in this election. Clearly the popular wing, and by the way, this is not...
Oh, yeah, see, so he's categorizing himself as the only successful, correct person in this scenario, and everybody else is the incorrect one. See how that works? Again, there is no group of people on the left that believes that, all the shit that he said. It's delusion, once again.
Not a matter in dispute. You can just look at the polling. So the identitarian left says defund the police is going to poll really well. Latinx is going to poll really well, except it doesn't. It polls disastrously, right? And
again, this is black and white. I don't think that almost anybody was saying defund the police. A few people were, I suppose, but literally not one single person that I listened to, like no political commentator, was in favor of defunding the police, including Pacman. He was not in favor of defunding the police. Neither was I. I was in favor of more funding for the police to put into sensitivity training and accountability and things like that. Oh, yeah, and maybe fund the police departments more so that they can hire social workers to go around and deal with some of these cases. I'm not actually familiar with any political commentator that was in favor of defunding the police or who talked about it. I don't know of anybody who did. They're out there, but I don't think they're very common. Screaming about defunding the police was a right-wing tactic. Yeah, who was out there doing that? Was there anybody on the left that was saying that?
Corporate wing says,
like everything that he's saying are issues as viewed through a right-wing lens. Nobody wants post-birth abortion. Nobody wants 6-year-olds to receive trans-affirming bottom surgery without parents' permission or whatever the f***. Nobody wants people to just identify as a woman and be allowed to compete in the Olympics suddenly with no hormones, no transition of any sort. They just suddenly are a woman because they say so. That's delusion. No one is doing that. Nobody is saying that. And it's right-wing framing.
Except it doesn't. It polls disastrously, right? And the corporate wing says, me kissing the ass of corporations is going to poll really well. And it doesn't. It never does, right? But when you look at the populist left, you've got paid family leave, you've got $15 minimum wage, you've got lowering drug prices, on and on and on, universal health care. They all poll.
I mean, you're seeing how he's categorizing his side as solely, absolutely, completely good, and every other side is completely bad. When we're not talking about Republicans and Democrats. We're talking about Democrats and Democrats here. This just is not how it works.
2/3 or higher. So why not do the thing that's popular? So this is, and of course, there's a reason why they don't. And it's because the whole thing is built on money. I mean, the first thing that Joe Biden took out of the first COVID relief bill was the $15 minimum wage. He was lying about it from day one.
Okay, I don't know if that's true, but you know what? If it is, okay. I don't agree with that. However, you have to meet people in the middle. You can't just go off half-cocked and do super progressive left-wing things. You have to appease everybody on the left. And unfortunately, again, there are a lot of people on the left, ostensibly, who are effectively on the right.
He buried that, and why?
Like my grandma, like the woman who said that earrings are gay. Yeah, she's part of the Democratic Party. She's part of the voter base. And if you lose her vote, you're going to lose the election. You have to appeal to everybody.
$15 minimum wage. He was lying about it from day one. He buried that, and why? It was, again, polling over 2/3. Why would you take that out? Why wouldn't you let the Republicans defeat it, if they're going to defeat it, and then use it as a tool against them to win elections? The reason you don't do any of that is because your donors ordered you not to do that.
Destiny, about to that point, Bernie Sanders said shortly after the election, I'm paraphrasing, of course, the working class abandoned Democrats because Democrats abandoned the working class. Do you think there's truth to that critique from Bernie?
No, of course not.
Yeah, this is, once again, the populist message. Bernie is a populist. Did the Democrats abandon the working class? No, I don't think so. I'm sorry. I think I've already been in this Poca Center like before, but I'm just trying to think about this for a second. Did the Democrats abandon the working class? No, I don't think that they did, on paper or otherwise, in rhetoric or anything. I think that populist idiots like Cenk Uygur here probably want everybody to think that they did.
It's, I mean, like the reality is incumbent parties all over the world lost. Like in every single country, the incumbent party lost vote share, lost seats in parliament, lost their.
Yeah, everybody opposed to Kamala wants to claim like credit for her loss. The people who are pro-Palestine and who didn't vote for Kamala because they think she won't be better than Trump, again, delusionally, they want to claim credit for her loss in 10 million votes or whatever. That's not what happened. That is not how that works. Everybody wants to claim credit for her loss. In my opinion, it was a multitude of factors, including what Destiny said. Also the fact that she's black and a woman combined, and a variety of other things.
Elected leaders, I mean, like, it was a referendum on inflation worldwide. We all felt it. And inflation is the thing that you feel the cumulative effects of. So
I think, is this called the iron rule? Or I forget what it's called. But basically, when inflation is up, the incumbent, the existing president or leader loses every time. The person in power loses. It's just how it works. Again, Cenk wants to believe that it's because his little group used their voice to complain about blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's just inflation among other things. That's how things play out. That's how large systems work. And the fact that Cenk doesn't know that tells me he doesn't know the first thing about large systems. Again, black and white doesn't work on a large scale like that.
Worldwide, we all felt it. And
I really thought she'd win. I guess we lost the inflation war. Yeah, I thought she'd win too. I thought for sure. I didn't think inflation was bad enough to make that much of a difference, but
their elected leaders, I mean, like, it was a referendum on inflation worldwide. We all felt it. And inflation is the thing that you feel the cumulative effects of. So there you go. I mean, like, when has there ever been a president in recent history that has been better for labor than Joe Biden? And is Trump going to be better for labor than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris would have been? Like,
exactly. What?
It's just, there's no policy foundation in that statement. And then to Cenk's point, I guess, like, this is the eternal mystery for progressives is that, and I've argued with so many on this, their candidates are supposedly the most popular, just nobody knows it yet. And all the positions that they have are the most popular positions. Then why do their candidates lose all their elections? Even when they're outspending opponents, they lose their elections.
Because they might have the plurality support. Let me rephrase. We might have the plurality support. I believe in all those issues too. Roe v. Wade, I want that back. And whatever other thing, there are a billion other things, universal health care and stuff. I want all that. Those are the same positions as populists, but it's the plurality at best. The majority doesn't necessarily want those things. Certainly not the majority of the country.
Why? Where are all of these progressive candidates taking Congress by storm, that are so popular and have all these popular positions? And then I'm curious what Cenk will say, but I will head off one response because I know it's going to be, well, it's because the party's opposed to them and the corporate donors. the party hated Donald Trump when he ran in 2016. Republicans hated Donald Trump when he ran in 2016. It wasn't the billionaire class and it wasn't the donor class. He genuinely got a lot of support from the party, and he eventually rose up through the ranks and he became popular and he became the nominee. And I think that if there was a progressive candidate, they could at least be winning their local races.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, Cenk, you're shaking your head. How do you see it?
Yeah. So first, I love talking about worldwide elections because I think it goes to exactly the point I'm making. Candidates that are for the status quo are losing everywhere. And what's
No. See, he's seeing things black and white again. The status quo. No, it's not people that were status quo. It's people that were on the left or people that were in positions of authority in that moment. Just because they were in power at that moment does not mean they're in favor of the status quo. Is that what it means to be in favor of the status quo, to be in power? What happens if Bernie Sanders takes the lead? What if he won the presidency? Would he then be in favor of the status quo? I'm sorry, man. This doesn't make any sense. I did not expect myself to take an anti-populist position today, but here we are.
What's interesting is they keep going. I don't get it. Brazil went left, then right, then left. UK went left, then right, then left. What's going on here? Are they left or are they right? They're not left or right. What the voters are doing is voting for change and voting for populism. And
where did he stick populism in there? Are they voting for change? Yeah, I suppose they're voting for change. I'm not sure where populism was like injected into this conversation.
So that is your Rosetta Stone. That will tell you if the right winger or the left winger is going to win. And so even Macron was a new party when he won in stunning fashion. Then he did the standard thing that everybody else does, and then they voted against him because then he became the status quo.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's what he's saying. Exactly. He's saying if you are in power, you are the status quo by definition, seemingly. People that were not the status quo when they took position are now the status quo. Get a grip, Cenk. Really, this is sad.
What is the status quo that the whole world is vomiting out right now? That's neoliberal policies. Give all the money to the very top, and don't worry, it'll trickle all over you many decades from now. People on the left, we've been fighting against this ideology for decades. But now our leaders have been co-opted by the donor class, and they say the same goddamn thing. And that's why we're losing these elections. It's not a matter of whether Donald Trump is better for labor than Kamala Harris. Of course not. But the question is, in the primary, is a candidate like Bernie Sanders better than Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris on labor? And the answer is obviously. So go towards labor, go towards change. So look, even within this election, guys, it was a perfect microcosm. When Kamala Harris first came out, Anna and I on the Young Turks said, oh my God, she's running a brilliant campaign. We're on tape saying that. Why? She came out as an economic populist in the beginning. She went after corporations doing price gouging. She went after the housing prices. She was addressing the economic needs of the average man. And then she picked Tim Walz, the most populist of any of the potential candidates. And then she took what was Joe Biden was down in the polling anywhere from 2 to 8 points nationally. She eventually sprung up to 7 points ahead nationally.
Yeah, she was very popular. I'm not sure where the flip was in his head. Where did she flip?
She had it. And on the show, I said, if the election were held today, she'd win. And that was true. And then a giant turnaround, and she lost the lead entirely and lost the election. What was the turnaround? Her brother-in-law, Tony West, who's a corporate lawyer for Uber, convinced her to kiss the ass of corporations.
Okay, yeah, she does have a brother-in-law, and he is, or whatever he is, and he is the CEO of Uber or whatever. What Cenk said there is correct, but where is he getting all this stuff about him convincing her to do this? Or where did he hear that? Is that real? How would Cenk have even known that? Anytime you hear somebody have a private conversation and this person is revealing what was in that private conversation, be skeptical. More often than not, it's just a flat out lie. Let me show you an example here. Hang on, let me find it. When I hear Cenk say things like this is what I think right here.
I am not confident at all because, as it was laid out earlier, I do know that, behind closed doors, while I won't name names.
What? Do you know anything about this situation? Are you just like making this shit up completely? Is that what's happening right now? That sentence made no sense at all. That's what Cenk is doing right now, in my opinion. I'm not confident at all, and behind closed doors, while I won't name names, is there a reason you won't name names?
Lost the lead entirely and lost the election. What was the turnaround? Her brother-in-law, Tony West, who's a corporate lawyer for Uber, convinced her to kiss the ass of corporations.
How could you possibly know that? Was this another behind closed doors thing? I'm actually going to pause the game and open my trusty save file editor. Save file editor, so I can add a Pokemon to my repertoire, because I want to have Abra long before now. So anyway, I'm not going to add anything else, though. Not going to add 100 Master Balls. Not going to make myself level 100 or any of that. I'm going to do this the traditional way, but I want to have an Abra, so.
And that was a brilliant political strategy. So what did she do? She put out a letter of 90 corporate CEOs backing her. And she started bragging about all the corporate CEOs.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's supported by a bunch of people. You think that if George W. Bush, for example, supports her, that she shouldn't show that? Is it like an association game with you?
CEOs are on my side. All the corporate CEOs are on my. I'm like, stop, you're doing terrible damage, right? And then she had Mark Cuban go on every cable news show. Now, guys,
remember, you shouldn't have certain support, is what you're saying? Like, I don't understand.
Remember, she's in favor of big business.
I'm just trying to think this over. I guess I can see people having an aversion to like David Duke's endorsement, for example, like the head of the KKK. I can see why people would be horrified and disgusted by that, and you'd want to reject that endorsement. But just having the endorsement of like major business leaders doesn't seem like they're not leaders of the KKK. They're just leaders of industry. So I'm not sure like why that would be so bad. They're not like advocating for the deaths of certain people or something.
And then she had Mark Cuban go on every cable news show. Now, guys, remember, she's in favor of big business. Don't worry, big business. She loves big business. Then Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, all the wrong direction. And she lost the lead and she lost the election. It's right there. It happened.
This is like somebody arguing. Hang on, I'm going to pull the save file editor up again. This is like somebody arguing she lost because she didn't support Palestine and like she didn't support getting, pulling all aid from Israel and everything. Those are things that I support. I want to pull aid from Israel. I want to, look, Israel can't be trusted. Wait, what the hell is that? Oh my God. I did it again. I saved the state and I forgot to save the game. Israel cannot be trusted to responsibly use weapons. So I want to pull all aid from Israel, all aid. And I want to send troops there to protect them on the 1967 borders, if necessary. That's what I would do personally. I would program Iron Dome, that missile defense system. I'd program it to only work up to the 1967 borders, personally. So I'm all for it. But that's not why Kamala lost. Completely unrelated.
All the wrong direction. And she lost the lead and she lost the election. It's right there. It happened right in front of your eyes. So now this idea that the establishment wing uses, just because we spend billions of dollars against your progressive candidates, and we have all of mainstream media lying and doing propaganda on our behalf and saying there are no donor class. The donor class doesn't affect anything. Oh my God, the billions they took in donations from corporations, it doesn't affect anyone. No, Bernie Sanders is the real problem. He's going to execute people in Central Park. Oh my God, if he actually serves the average American, it's going to be terrible. In 2013, when Bernie Sanders was polling at 1% against Hillary Clinton, I did a video on the Young Turks saying that brother could actually beat Hillary Clinton in the 2016 primary. Why did I say that? Not because of Bernie. Bernie's a great guy. He means well, etc. He's got his faults like everybody does.
Suddenly he doesn't really like Bernie all the way, huh?
But it's because I sensed a massive populist energy in the country, and he went from 1% to 48%. So why did he not get over the hump and get to 52%? Because the minute he got into the 40s, they went from ignoring him to he's going to execute people in Central Park. His followers are brown shirts. He's anti-Semitic. He's a...
Are we talking about Trump or Bernie? I think they're talking about Trump now, aren't they? Did I miss something? Literally all of the oligarchs are jumping beside Trump. You're absolutely correct on that. Yeah. Putin, Orban, that was the Hungary guy's name, and a bunch of others. Yeah. All of the oligarchs and dictators and all of those other people. Yep. Because he is beneficial to them, of course.
going to execute people in Central Park. His followers are brown shirts. He's anti-Semitic. He's this, he's that. He's terrible. So yeah, with all of the media and all of the money against you, it's a little harder to win. If you don't acknowledge that, you're just being intellectually dishonest.
With all of the money against you. I mean, I suppose, yeah, I guess I could agree that that it's harder to win elections without money, but I'm not even sure like exactly what he's trying to imply here. Like is he saying that progressives make up the majority of the country, but a few people have a lot of money and that prevents it from happening? Or it prevents them from winning? I mean, I suppose that I could be convinced that that has like an effect on it, certainly, but I don't think that's the whole thing. Unfortunately, I used to think that, but I just don't think that progressives are like extremely popular. Maybe plurality popular, maybe majority even barely, but not extremely. And I'm sorry, maybe plurality, but not majority of the country, certainly not.
It's a little harder to win. If you don't acknowledge that, you're just being intellectually dishonest.
Yeah, it's a little harder to win. That does not equate to everybody is against you and you are only losing because blah, 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 whatever.
Do you acknowledge that,
hold
Destiny?
On, hold on. Last thing. But despite all that, I helped to co-found Just Democrats. We launched it on the Young Turks. And everybody told me there's like, maybe you'll get one. We got 11 people rejecting corporate PAC money into Congress. It was stunning. And we had one of the most stunning political upsets literally in American history when AOC beat Crowley. And we did that with almost no money. Okay. So even with overwhelming odds against us, anything that is remotely just a 5% fair playing field and we win. Imagine if we had the party infrastructure with us rather than against us.
So Destiny, address any of that you want, but specifically Cenk's answer to your question about why aren't the progressives winning if the ideas are so popular, that Cenk said, which is when Bernie got into the 40s, the entire apparatus gets aligned against him.
I mean, it becomes an unfalsifiable claim. Like it might just be that Bernie was just too far to the left for what the Democratic Party was ready to handle, which you would expect to see reflected in the media and in the people.
That is absolutely the case. Even if he was majority popular in the Democratic Party, he's not majority popular in the world or in the country total. And Democrats have to account for not just the party, or not just like the majority of the party, but they need to get all of the party.
I mean, it becomes unfalsifiable. You can have elections where like Nina Turner is spending a ton of money and she still loses. You can have elections where the progressives are spending a lot of money and there's always a reason. It's either a new corporate donor or a new media is being biased or a new whatever. You know, all the media hated Trump. That didn't stop him in 2016. The Republican Party hated Trump. That didn't stop him in 2016. I think that at some point, like progressives will have to understand that it takes more than just, screaming about the most leftist populist policies ever to get elected. We talk about like the world had a referendum on neoliberalism. No, it was just a referendum on incumbent parties. And sometimes when you vote for it, people see that it doesn't even work out. It was a whole bunch of populism.
You need some kind of evidence from somewhere that it was a referendum on your thing, whatever that thing happens to be. You got to give me something. I'll take anything. There's no evidence that Palestine supporters and Israel opposers were the ones that flipped it. There's no evidence of any of these claims.
That moved to Brexit, and that hasn't worked out well for the UK at all. So now they're kind of trending back in the other direction. And if anything, a lot of the rejection, especially through Europe, and a lot of the reasons why those countries are tending right have to do with fallouts from the refugee crisis still, and all of the migrants fleeing into Europe still. So I mean, like this idea that the world wants these, hollow, empty populist leaders that at the end of the day don't even have great policies for them. And again, for some reason, like where are they? Why are they not taking over Congress? Like where are all of these people in Congress? We had the Justice Dems that came in originally, which was awesome. But there was, I don't remember this exactly, but I remember I looked up the stat because they went from saying that like only 10% of our candidates won to like 90% of our candidates. The Justice Dems went from supporting, I think, like 70 plus candidates one season to the next election cycle, like 6.
Justice Dems, right. The Justice Democrats was an organization started by Cenk, I believe, and Kyle Kulinski. And I think Kyle Kulinski left because he didn't really like how things were going, something to that effect. And the Justice Dems just kind of went like off the rails, I guess.
there was so much of this populist energy. Why aren't they being elected everywhere? Like they're still representing a minority opinion in the party.
Destiny, I want to stick with you for a second. Before the election, you tweeted, if Kamala ends up winning, the entire far left, the commies, tankies, Hamas supporters, etc., need to be effing jettisoned from the party. We don't need them.
Wow, that's interesting. So they're taking two separate sides.
To win. We can turn out our own base, and they are an absolute effing cancer to be associated with. Given Trump's victory and whatever it means to you, do you stand by that?
Yeah, 1,000,000,000,000%. I think that having to answer for having to, well, but I mean, I represent far more of the party than the far left does.
This is funny.
Apparently, you represent the loser wing.
Oh my God.
They're like every progressive candidate that is running in all of their elections that are being tossed. They lose their primaries. They lose their actual elections. Like they're losers. They're by definition, they're losers. The issue is that one is the lefty media sphere will never, ever support a candidate that is electable in the mainstream. They just won't. They turned on Bernie Sanders and they turned on AOC. Even those people aren't far left enough for the insanity that is the far left online now. So trying to kowtow to this like group of people who want to see like an actual communist or like this like anti capitalist or this like just somebody that's too far left that most European countries probably wouldn't even support in leadership. It's just an unrealistic proposition unless they can actually prove, you know, some of their, I guess, merit at more local levels or even like in congressional levels rather than just like for the presidential race. That's number one. And number two, that media sphere is toxic and we have to pretend that they're part of the in-group. Again, a big benefit that Trump enjoys is when he gets attacked, Trump can run this whole media circuit on the right where every single person is sycophantically obsessed with him. He doesn't have to answer any, any attacks. He can sit there and attack the other side endlessly and relentlessly, and there's no accountability. And then you're Kamala Harris or you're, the Democratic candidate. It's like, okay, well, going on the right platforms is very difficult because these people are going to, rake me over the coals. And then I go to the left platforms. These people all call me corporate sellouts, donor class, whatever. Okay, well, Jesus, I've got my center left media, but they're so obsessed with trying to be fair and balanced and to try to not be, not have like Trump derangement syndrome that they're going to hold me like ultra accountable. So you have these wacky, unbelievable moments where people like Walz and Vance are on stage. And the question for Walz is, didn't you lie 20 or 30 years ago about the months you were in Taiwan? And then the question for Vance is like, did you really mean it when you said you would also overturn like the next election? And we have to pretend that these two things are even.
Dude, totally. Oh my God, yes.
It's just ridiculous. The Democrat.
I often disagree with Destiny, says Dr. Hayes. I also often disagree with him, and he's done some shitty things, said some really stupid things in the past, and he's kind of, on occasion, like a, what's the word? Like a common sense Democrat, where common sense isn't real, and he thinks that he's the only one that has it. Everybody thinks their common sense is common sense, and everybody is wrong. Cenk is also a common sense Democrat in a lot of ways. Like, he appeals to common sense. Well, the answers are obvious. If you're not seeing the answers, then you're the problem. Anyway, Destiny says, they're on different sides, though, of the spectrum, obviously. Destiny says things that he believes to be, like, populist, when it's just stupid. Cenk does the exact same thing.
Establishment and then the Democratic media sphere needs to do a better job at like reinforcing the voting for the in-group, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is getting your candidate elected. You can do all the activism on Twitter or whatever you want, but if you're not pushing for electable candidates to get elected, then you're engaging in slacktivism.
Cenk, feel free.
Slacktivism, interesting.
To respond to that however you want, but I would love to hear you address the issue Destiny's bringing up about the asymmetry when it comes to the media ecosystems. And it's not about if she had done Rogan, she would have won. I don't believe that. I don't think there's any evidence of that, but generally the question of the media ecosystem.
Yeah, so lots of thoughts here. First off, why could Trump overcome it and Bernie couldn't? You're leaving out the fact that Trump was an enormous celebrity and they literally gave him over $1 billion in free media as he was running on the Republican side.
Totally. I agree. That's true.
Whereas Bernie Sanders got, in his miraculous run to catch Hillary Clinton that started in 2015, where he went from 1 point to basically about 48 percentage points, ABC covered him for 7 seconds, the whole year, 7 seconds. So that's what mainstream media does, because that they're literally corporate media. They're multi-billion-dollar corporations. So they hate actual populists like Bernie Sanders. Fake populists like Donald Trump, oh, it's a clown show. We're having fun. Give him a couple of $1 billion in free media and see how it turns out. Well, it turned out very poorly. And there's a conflation here between mainstream media and left-wing media. I think that the question on the debate stage that Destiny is referring to, yeah, totally outrageous, asymmetrical, ridiculous. Those two things are not comparable. That's mainstream media doing false equivalency. That's not the conversation that we're having here.
Finally, Jesus, dude, I finally got that damn lucky egg. Holy Christ. That was a chore to figure out. I've got it, though.
Mainstream media doing false equivalency. That's not the conversation that we're having here. We're very, very far from mainstream media. So in terms of what went wrong with the Just Democrats real quick, and then I'll come back to what should left-wing media do. So in the beginning, when the co-founders were running it, that's when we ran to 70 candidates and we were very successful. Unfortunately, all of us kind of left the building for different reasons. And then the new management decided they were going to run only a small number of races. But to be fair to them, they actually won a very high percentage of those races in the second time around. That's how they were able to build up from 4 to 11. So there's good arguments, political strategy-wise, for either direction. But what really took the steam out of Just Democrats is that the founders wanted AOC and the others to go in a populist left direction, an economically populist direction.
They worked with AOC. I believe Jenks started the Justice Democrats with Kyle Kulinski and some others. And I'm pretty sure Kyle Kulinski left and they got like more exclusive. And I'm assuming Kyle wanted to like include more people rather than exclude others. And AOC worked with them to like get elected and get others elected, I think, and stuff. And yeah, it just kind of fell apart from there, I believe.
And instead, that's very, very difficult. The reason why it's so difficult is because their colleagues get so mad at them if they talk about money in politics, because then they
why would anybody get upset about that? No, I don't think anyone has a problem with. It's when you target specific individuals like a shithead. That's when people get unhappy with you. You can just say get rid of money in politics, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, there are organizations that donate way too much money to politicians. In fact, no organization should be allowed to donate money to politicians. It should be funded by individual donors, like under $100 kind of thing.
I'll go, are you saying Hakeem Jeffries is corrupt just because he took all this money from the oil companies, the drug companies, the banks, AIPAC, every other lobbyist?
Well, I mean, that's what Cenk is saying, of course. So I don't know why he's acting like, I don't know, like this is an insane thing to say, but he is saying all of these people are taking way too much money. And honestly, yeah, they are taking too much money. But if they stand for the policies that I want, then I'm down. He's just kind of connecting this weird populist thing, this weird little populist trail everywhere. He sees it all over the place. There are elites around every corner. Again, this is exactly what happened in Germany. And I understand the draw. I also think that the rich should be brought down to our level financially more than they are. I also see that the rich are taking advantage of the working class. But don't turn this into a conspiracy.